I've said for a while now that we don't need the media's validation when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings, as in, give us the proper respect that we are due. This is a good team, and every single year we come up with reasons, not us, but people within the media, as far as why the Vikings will always finish in fourth place in the NFC North. They just won 14 games in 2024, but you see a lot of, well, you know what, that was just a fluke and they're going to fall back to earth. We don't need you anymore. You know why? Because the NFL has proclaimed the Minnesota Vikings as one of those teams. The schedule just came out today, and the Vikings have a total of 7 nationally televised games for 2025. That includes a Monday Night Football game, 2 Sunday Night Football games, 2 international games, a Thursday Night Football game, and then we've got a Christmas game against the Lions. What are we going to do about that? We'll figure it out. But going through this schedule, game by game, team by team, and giving a breakdown as far as the record prediction. Now, just blindly looking at the schedule, I'm predicting 11 wins, but it could change based off of the analysis of each team that they're playing on a particular week. Starting with week 1 at Chicago, Monday Night Football. And I think I talked about this with Rap last week, as far as I'm willing to give this a shot for Chicago. You know how every offseason they say, this is our year, we're going to turn things around. And normally I just brush it off. But for this one, because of the addition of their new head coach, Ben Johnson, I'm going to give this an opportunity to maybe manifest itself into something good. That if you're ever going to turn your franchise around, Chicago, this would be it with your new head coach in Ben Johnson. That said, I'm going to say that the Vikings will go ahead and sweep Chicago in both games. That will be week 1, Monday Night Football, as well as at home, week 11. Just because first year being their new team, you're not going to hit the ground running. It's going to take you some time to show something's there once and for all. Week 2, the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be at home. I think it's going to be too much for the Falcons. Evidently, Kirk Cousins is still there. I thought for sure he would get traded, but that's going to be too much, especially prime time for that young team. Vikings get the win. Week 3, this is a regular ass, looks like noon game against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is going to be at home. We know Joe Burrow, he's got those 2 elite receivers. Trey Hendrickson seems to still be pissed off that he doesn't have a contract extension. They went heavy on defense. It's going to be a battle. I'm going to say, even though it's at home, the Vikings, they take the L here. So through the first 3 games of the 2025 season, I've got the Vikings at 2-1. And then at week 4, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers. What is Mike Tomlin doing? You don't have a quarterback. You're one of the more well-respected coaches in the league. You're going to go out there with Mason Rudolph? What is wrong with you? Oh my God. Needless to say, the Vikings, they're going to win this game easily. So they're going to start the year off. What are you doing? 3-1. And then week 5, you have another international game to follow against the Steelers that was in Dublin. This time, week 5, against the Cleveland Browns in London. That's going to be a W. Easy money, house money. I know that's dangerous to say, but that is the case right here. Week 6, you got the bye. And then week 7, at home, you've got the Philadelphia Eagles. This is the trench battle of the regular season. offensive line versus defensive line, AVG versus Lane Johnson, or Jordan Mailata versus Jonathan Grenard, defensive line versus our offensive line. It is going to be crazy. Stand up, fight this battle, and get this win. I'm going to say the Vikings win. I'm going to say they beat the Philadelphia Eagles week 7 at home. Damn it. Week 8 at the LA Chargers. This is going to be Thursday night football. The battle of the coaches that could have been, or one that is here and one that could have been. KOC versus Jim Harbaugh. If you had to vote in hindsight, would you have still gone with the choice of KOC? I don't think the Vikings could have done wrong either way. I think whether it was Jim or KOC, the Vikings would be in good hands right now. But either way, something about this game just doesn't sit well with me, even though I think that Justin Herbert is a bit overrated, or maybe he's properly rated. I'm going to say the Vikings, after an emotional victory against Philadelphia at home, they travel to LA and not necessarily lay a stinker, but they lose that game. Week 9 at Detroit. So this is interesting to me because I think this season is going to tell us a lot about Jared Goff. This could go so many different ways. Yes, with Ben Johnson, he had much success 2 years ago getting to the NFC Championship game, nearly getting to the Super Bowl. These playoffs, if not for Jaden Daniels, who knows how far they would have gone. But no more Ben Johnson for Jared Goff. So a couple of things is bound to happen. One of a couple of things are bound to happen. Number one, without Ben Johnson, their new offensive coordinator, John Morton, their offense is not going to remain in continuity. There's going to be a little bit of fall off. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that Jared Goff is going to automatically fail, but Sean McVay didn't want him. This new offensive coordinator, is it going to get off to a rough start? Or does it not even matter because of the recent experience that Jared Goff has had with Ben Johnson, that he can almost be a player's coach on the field himself? That is what I'm interested in seeing. Which path does Jared Goff go, where he becomes a player's coach on the field himself based off of the experience he just got from Ben Johnson, where he doesn't need to have his hand held from Sean McVay, who didn't want him during his rookie contract. Maybe he's established himself to where he can be that Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, where he can be an extension of leadership on the field. We'll see. That said, I think there's a clear separation of the NFC North, that if anything, you can't just say that the Lions, they're going to be the juggernauts of the NFC North. I think if anything, the Vikings and the Lions are going to be tied. So I'm going to say they'll split the series. At Detroit week 9, I'll say they lose. And then we get to week 10 against the Ravens. Nah, man, we're not doing this. If this were the playoffs and the only way that the Vikings would face the Ravens in the playoffs is in the Super Bowl, then we can talk. I will gladly have that conversation about Lamar Jackson, but regular season Lamar Jackson, no, that's a loss. So what we got through the first 10 games, record-wise, just blindly, before even looking at the schedule breakdown, I said, the Vikings will get about 11 wins. Week 1, win at Chicago, win against the Falcons, lose against the Bengals, beat the Steelers and the Browns. So they start the year off 4-1. They get a huge upset against the Philadelphia Eagles. That's 5-1. Something about the Chargers game just doesn't sit well with me. 5-2. I'll say they split the series with the Lions. So what I just say, 5-2. So that would be 6-3. Ravens, no. So that's going to be 6-4. Say they sweep the Bears. It's going to be 7-4. And then you get to week 12 at the Packers. And this isn't going to be a cop out, but I'm also going to say that the Vikings will split the series with Green Bay just because I don't fear Jordan Love. Jordan Love is just some guy. So if you can beat just some guy at quarterback, I think you're going to be fine. Sure, they'll get one off. Maybe that's at Green Bay, week 12, but they're certainly not sweeping the Vikings. If anything, if any team's going to sweep anybody between the two, it's going to be the Vikings over Green Bay. But just to be safe, I'm going to say they'll split. At Green Bay, they'll lose this one. Week 13 at Seattle. And I know whenever we talk about the Vikings playing Seattle at Seattle, we tend to get the heebie-jeebies. But for Sam Darnold, you're back in the slums now. You're going to have to prove yourself all over again. All those fancy weapons you had in Minnesota are no longer going to be there. You don't have a DK Metcalf. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba and the ghost of Cooper Kupp. You have a decent defense, but I think because you're going to have to reprove yourself with a whole different set of weapons, not the cushy job that you had in Minnesota, I think this is going to be tough slinging for you. So I'm going to say the Vikings win that game at Seattle week 13. Week 14 at home versus the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels, I think, had the best rookie season of all time in 2024. However, I think there's going to be a bit of a fall off. At no blame on his part, but I think for the Commanders front office, they got a little bit with two players, not necessarily two players, but two players that I think will end up causing a little bit more harm than good. Certainly one of them, the other is kind of up in the air, where I think the front office got enamored with names instead of the game. For instance, they brought on Laramie Tunsil, who, when he's not committing penalties, he's one of the better offensive tackles in the league. The problem is he is one of the worst offensive linemen, specifically offensive tackles, that commits penalties. He committed last year, out of a possible 140 offensive tackles, he committed the most in the league, 19. Y'all remember during last year's live stream, Vikings versus Texans? I swear, Tunsil committed at least 5 penalties, and we were having a whole ass party over here. That is crazy. When he's not committing penalties, he's good. The second player that I think they got caught up in the name versus the game is Deebo Samuel. He had the most drops for a 49ers player in 2024, and now he's going to be their wide receiver too. I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Commanders. They're going to be at home. They're going to be on the road. Week 14 at US Bank Stadium. That noise. Debo's going to screw up a couple of times. We might get 5 more penalties at least from Laramie Tunsil. Give me the W, damn it. Week 15 at Cowboys, Sunday Night Football. It's something about Dallas where, I don't know, they can come off a big win the last couple of years, and then they got to face Dallas, whether it's at home or on the road, and they completely ish the bed. So I'm going to say they lose there. Week 16 at the Giants. Russell Wilson, Rumpelstiltskin, Jackson Dart, Shopping Cart, Vikings by 10. Week 17, Christmas Day. I don't know how we're going to make this work, but we'll do it, damn it. Versus the Detroit Lions at home, US Bank Stadium. I'm going to say they split the series with Detroit. They're going to win on Christmas Day. And lastly, week 18, Green Bay Packers split the series with Green Bay. So that would put a total, just blindly looking at the schedule, that would put the total. I already had it at 11 versus the Packers. So going blindly before the schedule even came out, I predicted 11 wins. If I'm not mistaken, based off of this tally that I just did, that puts them at exactly 11 wins for an 11-6 record for the 2025 NFL season. Your thoughts in the comments section below. We'll see you next time.